Welcome everyone, Costin here with my guide for the greenskins in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. Here we have a fancy example of a greenskin Grimgor Ironhide about to go toe-to-toe against Archaon. The difficulty is legendary, very hard, and Grimgor is just gonna eat Archaon alive. We ought to resolve. But here's where the real power of the greenskins comes in. This is an open field battle, and I've just gained 16,000 gold. Therein lies the power of the greenskins. It's not a fancy economy. It's nothing like of that nature. Economies are for, well, losers, which the greenskins certainly are not. Rather, what the greenskins do, the greenskins swim in gold. They swim in gold for a couple of reasons. It comes down to these banners that they're getting. There's a lot of them. Like, an enormous amount. How many? Well, scrolling down, you're looking at Bully, Pit Boss, because casualties do affect how much money you earn in battle, Scavengers, and so on. A lot, and a lot. And you gain these very, very easily. So you end up swimming in gold in your campaigns. But there's more. Oh yes, there's a lot more to the greenskins than just that. Like over here, I'm looking to recruit an army. How many recruitment slots do I have? 5 recruitment slots. That's because every single greenskin settlement, the main settlement building, gives you 1 local recruitment capacity, allowing you to build up an army very quickly. Now here, I'm recruiting a bunch of trolls just to make up, the mainstay of my army, because I'm at war with Vlad over here. Made some, let's call them questionable decisions, but either way, we're with Vlad. Gonna recruit an army, gonna recruit multiple armies potentially, actually, because I've got another army being recruited here. In point of fact, I have 12 armies. The turn timer is 51. This, all you see in blue, is my empire. I started here. Azag is right over here. That is the power of the greenskins. They are one of the most powerful races in the entire game, alongside the Warriors of Chaos, and to a lesser degree, Vampire Counts. They're very powerful from the beginning until the end. Same as the Warrior of Chaos and Vampire Counts. Each of those races, the golden trio of overpowered races in the game right now, each of them have some substantial benefits from beginning to end. Some races are good, but they may take time to become really good. Like the High Elves. The High Elves dominate the end game, but they can struggle a bit in the early game. The greenskins do not struggle at any point in their campaign, because of the sheer amount of gold they're going to get post-battle, the sheer amount of gold they're going to earn from settlements. Keep in mind, I'm rolling in 12 armies. I've got 40,000 income. Now, I could get more with a High Elven campaign than this, but that would be heavily reliant on trade. I'm not reliant on trade. I'm reliant on the heaps of shiny stuff. I'll talk about the economy in detail, but suffice to say, it is very strong. Recruitment is very strong. The armies are very strong. And then you've got great growth. By default, a major settlement is going to give you 10. But you do have a structure that gives you 20 at level 1. Eat your hearts out, dwarves. Then there is a commandment, a basic commandment that gives you 20. So 20 with 10, 30. And that 10 is for each settlement building. So 30 with 20, 50. And that's just the start. Oh yeah, that's just the start. There's research that improves it even more. 10 growth, 60. And then we get into the Wa situation, which was one of the Wa is one of the main mechanics of the greenskins. And it has been since the Grom the Punch DLC in Warhammer 2. See, this meter fills up as you fight battles. If it's, like, I can't show you here because I've got a WA declared. But as the meter fills up, and while you have a WA declared, while you're gaining, while you're gaining reputation to build a WA through battles. Like, the Greenskins don't fight a passive campaign. You fight a very aggressive campaign, and you have all the tools for it. As you fight a very aggressive campaign, you gain more points. Now, what does this give you? Well, it gives you a number of things. I wish it would show you even when the wall is declared, but it basically gives you, if you look at this, it gives you 30 more growth. Like, the buildings in this region, the Ivory Road, are giving me 100, and that's insane. And then the WA event is giving me 30. But on top of that, the WA event is also giving me 5 control in a region. 5 control. So control is great. Growth is great. And on top of that, because control is great, growth is even better, because the more control you have, the more growth you get. And to cap it all off, Greenskins have very cheap structures. Like this one, this tier 3 horde that generates 500 income, 900. As a comparison, Kislev's basic tier 1 economic building costs 1,000. Just to give you an idea of how imbalanced things are. Yeah, maybe this is a bit too much, or maybe Kislev needs a buff, as many other factions do. This is what some people don't understand when I talk about good races. It's like, this is a good race. A good race that steamrolls everything from beginning to end. You can fight an entire campaign on legendary difficulty as the Greenskins, and out-resolve essentially every single battle. Except the quest battles, but there's a mod for that. That's how powerful the Greenskins are. That's also how powerful the Warriors of Chaos are, by the way. They're the Warriors of Chaos are the only race that can compare to them. But the Warriors of Chaos are so powerful because of vassals, strong dark fortresses. The Greenskins hold a lot of territories and don't give a single bloody fuck. And then, with the WA mechanic, touching on the WA mechanic, depending on who you declare a WA against, like I declared a WA against Grimgor. And I then knocked him out, confederated him. All the territory that you're seeing here was Grimgor's territory. But I declared a WA against him, and you get the trophy. The current one I got for taking out Draika, it was 20% missile strength, 30% ammunition, 20% research rate for my faction. In fact, declaring a WA against Grimgor may have been a bit counterproductive, I believe. The stronger the faction that you declare a WA against, the better, the more you're gonna get. The more you're gonna get in terms of rewards. It can be fairly, very, very substantial. And then you have the Confederation mechanic. So how does it work? If you're thinking diplomacy is going to work with the Greenskins, might do so, but you're much better off. Let's say, for instance, I want to confederate Warzak over here. Well, I'm much better off just going there and beating the crap out of him in a fight, like to just toggle the war. Like, all I need to do to confederate him, though there is a turn timer on this, though it's not active over here, but all I need to do is just beat him in a battle, and then you get a post-battle option to confederate him, or let him go. With legendary lords. You can also confederate minor Greenskin factions, so you can get a ridiculous amount of territory beyond what you can just conquer outright. Or you can let the Greenskin legendary lord gain a huge amount of territory, and then just turn around and beat him up and confederate with him very, very quickly, gaining a huge amount of territory in the process. All of these factors combined make the Greenskins an absolute tide of death and destruction on the campaign map that's very hard to match for many factions. Like, for instance, in this particular campaign, Skarsnik literally just took Thorgrim out. He didn't even sweat over it, he did it with ease. Actually, Skarsnik was fighting a solo war against Clan Morris, Rictus, and Emmerich before I beat him up. And then I made an alliance with Clan Rictus, and I've been beating up Emmerich since then. But just gives you an idea of the sheer power the Greenskins do have in their campaigns. Now let's talk about legendary lords, armies, everything like that. Now, Legendary Lord-wise, I've done a dedicated video on this. I'm not going to go too much into the detail over their skill lines or anything like that, but here's what you need to know. Grimgor is one of the best Legendary Lords for the Greenskins. He's got that massive campaign movement range, that 10% campaign movement range for all armies. He gets an upkeep benefit faction-wide for Black Orcs and Big Guns, so you can maintain a lot more of those units. And personally, he gets 30% post-battle loot. That's how he got so much money from Archaon. You're next. So he's really a hero killer, a lord killer. Something that the Greenskins can actually struggle with in terms of killing some of the powerful lords. His neighbor is Kholek, and he's stronger than Kholek. Flat out stronger than Kholek. He's stronger in a fight. He's stronger on the campaign map in a lot of ways, and he gets a lot of armor for Black Orcs. And then he gets his own personal Wa. Like all the Legendary Lords get a unique Wa mechanic. Grimgor is very, very powerful. Then, he's powerful if you confederate him, but he's also very powerful if you play him. The one downside with him is his start position, because the Mountains of Morn are not the best location in the game. Then you got Azag. Azag is also very strong, though in a different way. He's not as powerful in a fight because he's a hybrid lord, so he gets magic. The magic is not really that powerful. But what Azag does get is he gets benefits to orcs as well, though it's big guns more rather than Black Orcs. He does get that sweet 20% research rate faction-wide, income from sacking settlements, wyverns. He has a wyvern that has some benefits. Like Grimgor, yeah, he's a powerful hero killer, but you can find it difficult to actually get close to them. Azag won't have that issue. And I would say that Azag is worse in battle than Grimgor, but stronger on the campaign map because of that research rate and 25% income from sacking settlements. It gets a ridiculous amount. How ridiculous? Let's just say that with Azag in particular, you'll constantly be sacking settlements in the 5-figure range. Yeah. Like, it is insane when you sack a settlement and you get 30, 40,000 gold. Because that 25% income for sacking settlement, it stacks along with the post-battle loot options from banners, all that. So Azag is really good on campaign map. Not so good in battle compared to say, Grimgor. Though he's in a pretty decent spot. Skarsnik, the worst legendary lord of the Greenskins. He's got the crap skill line. Actually, a generic shaman lord is going to be better than Skarsnik, let alone Grimgor, Warzag, Azag, even Grom. They're all better in battle than him. Okay, so what about on the campaign map? Well, he gets an ambush benefit, but the thing is, he doesn't have like a special movement stance, right? If he had the special movement stance that gave him an ambush stance, we'd be singing a different tune here. Some lords do have that. Alif Anar has that, for instance, just as an example, and he's a High Elven lord. Maybe Skarsnik should have that, though I don't necessarily expect Wraith of Assembly to take a look at the Greenskin and say, oh yeah, they need a buff when they're already so overpowered on the campaign map. There are factions that need them more than that. He gets a unique building chain and Karakate piece, but it's not good, and he can only recruit orc units from Karakate peaks, which means he's going to be far more limited on the campaign map than the other Greenskin lords. Goblin units are great, don't get me wrong, but it's just like you want that flexibility. Oh, he gets 100% character experience. Not too great. The only real benefit that you get if you're playing Skarsnik is that 40% upkeep and recruitment cost. Let me just say it. You don't need that. Like, that upkeep benefit, like if we're talking about a faction like Kislev, or a faction like the High Elves even, or the Empire, yeah, that would be a gigantic difference. For a faction as rich and powerful as the Greenskins, it's just kind of meaningless to talk about. The Greenskin armies are cheap, they're not too expensive. Getting 40%, minus 40% upkeep and recruitment doesn't really matter. Azag actually gives you a lot more, because a lot of the money you're actually going to be spending is not in recruitment and upkeep. A lot of the money you're going to be spending, even with the cheap Greenskin structures, is in upgrading structures. So, yes, Skarsnik is just bad. Like, he's a lord for a very powerful race, but he personally is just a really, really bad lord. in a lot of ways. I know some people won't like that. I personally like Skarsen quite a lot in the lore, but yeah, he's enough thing going for him. He's supposed to be this Goblin Lord. A generic Goblin Lord will do a better job in battle than he will. Let alone what Grom the Punch will do on the campaign map in battle. Then Warzag. Warzag is not too great on the campaign map, though he is a powerful caster lord in battle, and he's probably got the best army of all of them with all the Savage Orc buffs that he gives them. He can maintain a very cheap Savage Orc army, though I would personally say Warzag is far better to confederate than to play. He's good, he's a good caster, he has a lot of benefits, but mainly those benefits buff his own army. It's just not really worth playing him. It's more so worth to confederate him. Like, he's what I would describe one of those selfish legendary lords where their army is very strong. Now, this made sense within the context of Warhammer 1 and 2, but in Free, you're running around with a dozen armies. It doesn't matter that one of those armies is much stronger than the other. You need all your armies to be good. Like, this is why Grimgor and Azag are so great, because they get benefits that buff all of their armies or they buff their faction. Warzag only gets that charge bonus for Savage Orcs, but the thing is, you're probably not going to want to use Savage Orcs for your other armies, besides the army that he personally has. And then finally, Grom the Punch. Grom the Punch is the strongest legendary lord of the Greenskins. Why? Is it combat ability? No. Like, his special combat abilities are like buffing chariots and pump wagons, that are mediocre to say the least. He does buff goblins by quite a bit, though, and that is useful. But really, with Grom, it's not his combat ability in battle, it's not his armies, it's his campaign benefits. You won't be able to tell this from the screen, but he has the best campaign benefits of all of the Greenskin Legendary Lords. He doesn't have the movement range that Grimgor has, but he gets a major control benefit on top of the ones that already exist. A major growth benefit on top of the benefits that already exist for the Greenskins. Major economy benefit. Major army benefits to all of his armies through the Cauldron. The Cauldron can give your Goblin Archers explosive arrows. That's where I need to stop. Like, understand the Goblin Archers are already good. They're cheap, they're effective, they're good. He makes them a top tier ranged unit in the game through his Cauldron ability. And that's just one of the effects that he has. And on top of that, he has the global recruitment direction of -1 per turn for Goblin units. This is before other benefits that you can get in the game. Yeah, Grom is ridiculous. Like, I've played campaigns as him, and it's like, you steamroll everything. In fact, you steamroll so hard with Grom that literally all of your neighbors will declare war on you by turn 10, and they won't be able to stop you. Doesn't matter if we're talking about the Empire, the entirety of Athaloran, the High Elves, everyone ganking up on you. Like, when Ikka Karl, France, or Ryan and Durfu come for you and you beat the shit out of them with ease, you're a powerful legendary lord. And that's Grom in a nutshell. But he's so powerful because he can print money. The Greenskin unique mechanic is scrap. Grom can use the Cauldron to turn scrap into actual fucking money. He will not go bankrupt. I mean, Greenskins in general have a hard time going completely bankrupt, even if their economy is running at the deficiency. If you're playing Grom, you will not go bankrupt, assuming you have scrap. Like, the only problem with this campaign is you might end up going into territory that's completely unmanageable. Your best bet, like, consider this, you start over here in Bretonnia, that wouldn't be too bad. But your best bet in your campaign, just ignore your starting position and invade Ulthuan. Like, forget everything else, invade Ulthuan. Just to stress this out, Ulthuan, the High Elven settlements are really powerful. The High Elves are a strong race. Tyrion and Alariol and Nakari, because yeah, you will be fighting Nakari, are some of the are absolute beasts in combat. Especially, like, Nakari may not have a great faction, but Nakari is deadly in combat. Tyrion is deadly in combat, and Grom, he just eats them alive, all of them. Forget poor Alfarian. Alfarian stands no chance against Grom the Punch. That's how ridiculous this guy is. He's on a completely different level in terms of power, in a race that's already the most one of the most powerful in the game. Yeah, you want an easy campaign? Play Grom. I mean, it kind of makes sense because the rework that the Greenskins got introduced Grom. That's why he is so very powerful. Not necessarily the best combat ability, but doesn't really matter what combat ability you have. When you're showing up with Wolf One by turn 20 with four stacks. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but you certainly have the capability of doing that, and they're not going to be able to stop you. That's just the Legendary Lords. More details in the dedicated video on the subject. Now, to talk about the Greenskin Lords and heroes, they have a great hero selection with Shamans, Black Orc Big Bosses, Giant River Troll Hags, and Goblin Big Bosses, but they have a fairly mediocre Lord selection with Goblin Great Shamans, Night Goblin War Bosses, and Orc War Bosses. But out of the free selection, which one should you go for? Well, the best one is the Goblin Great Shaman. Why is that? Well, it's because of a special skill tree, a special skill that he has. The Lil Wah School of Magic is not too great, but he does ride an Arachnarok spider, which is pretty potent in combat. He does have a bound spell, but more importantly, he gets this skill, Goblin Tide, 15 armor and 6 melee attack. The armor is fairly significant because it will buff your goblin units further. Like, this is Skarsnik. His nasty skulkers have 22. These nasty skulkers have 37. 37 armor versus 22 makes a hell of a difference, and it's on all goblin units. So yeah, these guys have a great deal of army potential. Skill-wise, when it comes to leveling lords, you almost always want to get 1 point in the blue line, which is Rune Marcher, 1 point in Inspiring Presence, experience per turn, and then most likely the Gobos or the Boys, depending on what army you have. If you have a lot of Goblin units, yeah, buff the Gobos, because that melee attack, melee defense, ammunition, and missile strength is going to be a lot. Is going to count for a lot in your campaign. The Red skill line is good. Their combat skill line, being magic or melee combat, is good. And yes, the Goblin Great Shamans are the best choices. There are a number of traits that are available for these guys. Let me try and see if I have. Okay, so if I look at the Night Goblin War Bosses, what do they have? They can ride the Squig. They've got ambush benefit. They've got the Squig benefit. They got melee attack and charge bonus for Night Goblin units, but they lack the armor talent. So compared to the casters, yeah, they are a melee lord, but their army is going to be much weaker because they're meant to buff goblins. The Goblin Shamans do it. Like, buffing ambush when you don't have a special ambush stance. Like, yeah, you can go into an ambush stance and use that to try and ambush that way, but like, just a flat out benefit in regular battles is more important. What about the war bosses? Well, the war bosses are certainly a lot more durable in combat than the goblin ones, and they can ride wyverns, which, yeah, Arachnarok is good, but wyvern is even better, especially with the dedicated melee lord like the war bosses. But outside of that, they're not really adding a lot, I feel. But yeah, same idea, like 1 point in the blue skill line, 4 points in the red skill line, and then melee combat ability, or maybe a combination of melee and blue skill line, trying to get the Renowned and Feared, the upkeep benefit, campaign movement range, all that kind of stuff, and further campaign movement, upkeep. Now, as for the legendary lords, when you're leveling them, like I'll use Skarsnik as an example here, though honestly I should really just replace him in this campaign with a generic goblin boss, because yeah, that's gonna do better. But with legendary lords, here's the principle: you get the same points in the blue skill line, 1 point blue skill, 4 points, Gobos, Orcs, whatever, but 4 points, just get those points, and then you save points. Then you stop spending points from level 7, because that's when you're gonna get all these skills. Then you wait until you can unlock their special skill line. Though in Skarsnik's case, it's not really well that worth it. I mean, this is okay, but it's only available to allies in range. You do get fermented fungi. You do get the benefit of combat and stock. Underboss, though, is just going to screw you up, because like stealing 25% experience earned by other lords, yeah, he really needs a rework, but that skill line just really goes, that skill just really goes against the spirit. But you may want it to unlock Night Goblin Shamans and Goblin Big Bosses in all provinces if you're playing Skarsnik. He does have some decent stuff here, like Cuff Him Up, all that kind of stuff, but he's lacking the armor skill. I believe Grom, if I'm not mistaken, has the armor skill. It's been a while, though, since I've played with Grom on the campaign map. But that's how you level up your lords. What about individual heroes? Well, I have all of them except a Goblin Shaman. I believe, if I'm not... Yeah, I can recruit one here. Now, between the two of them, the skill line that the shamans have, the goblin shamans have, just isn't that great. All the spells are okay, but they share capacity with orc shamans, and orc shamans just are flat out better. They will have better survivability, because like these guys don't even have mount. That can count for a bit. In terms of their survival. So you're just much better off ignoring that they exist and just getting flat out, just getting orc shamans, because they have a war boar and skills like the Foot of Gork. Here we go. Brain Buster, Fist of Gork, even Power of the Wall. All that. It's just better than what the Goblin Shaman can provide. But yeah, fairly simple to level up a mage, only one Skull of Magic. As for the Black Orc big bosses, they're okay, but they're really meant to buff Orc units, and you may not end up using a lot of Orc units, regardless of Legendary Lord that you're playing, unless you're talking about Grimgor and to an extent Azak. But they give you training. Thing is, do you really need it? It's useful, don't get me wrong, it is useful, but it's not too important, I think. They are very durable in a fight. They can ride war boars, they've got heroic killing blow, they've got dead hard for a lot of armor, they've got thick skinned, hard to hit, all that. Like skill wise, how would you level these guys up? I would always spend whenever I can spend points, I would always spend them in training, and then I'd obviously get the point in dead hard, and then hard to hit, thick skinned, get back here. Deadly Blade. Like, charge is always a useless skill on heroes and lords. You don't really need it. Unless it's on a monstrous unit, and even then, like on a Ragnarok or on a Wyvern. But even then, it's not too important, I feel. Early on, at least. Like, when you get the luxury of spending skill points whenever you want, sure. But for Black Orc Big Boss, it's hard to hit. 1 point of thick skin, that will unlock get back over here. Hard to hit just increases melee defense. Melee defense reduces the chance that enemies will hit you. Get back here gives a leadership benefit. Leadership can be a bit of an issue for greenskins, especially with goblins. Then Blade Shield, Scarred Veteran, and of course Smash 'em Faster, which gives quite a lot of melee attack. They're useful, but they're really more so to buff orcs, because he gives casualty replenishment for orc units. He gets vigor loss reduction for all orc units if you go boss on the field. Baline Kraka is probably just a better skill to get, because you get Deadly Onslaught with him, which obviously gives you a lot of combat power with them. And then Bones versus Large Armor Piercing. They're great in a fight. They're actually better than the regular war bosses in a fight, just because of the sheer damage they can do. Then the Giant River Troll Hag. Speaking about these heroes, though, it's probably worth saying, like, Shamans require tier 3. Shamans require tier 3. Black Orc Big Bosses require tier 4, a tier 4 barracks, unless you're Grimgor, who gets them from tier 1. Night Goblin, Giant River Troll Hags require tier 3, if I'm not mistaken. So if I look here, yeah, it is tier 3 that you can get them. So you can get them in a minor settlement, and you can increase the capacity of a Giant River Troll River Troll Hags. And Goblin Big Bosses require the boss's hut to increase capacity, you need to get tier 3. But yeah, you can get 1. No, you actually need to get tier 4. So it might be a bit hard to get these guys. But I'll talk about the pros and cons of them. Giant River Troll Hags are, like, outside of obviously the magic potential of shamans, the sheer combat durability and damage dealing of the Black Orc Big Bosses, on the campaign map, the Giant River Troll Hags are actually the best. The reason they're the best is because they give you a lot of replenishment. For instance, this army has 17 campaign replenishment, and it's really from the Giant River Troll Hag. One of the benefits Grom gets early on in his campaign that makes a significant difference against all the enemies he's going to fight is that he starts with one of these River Troll Hags. Anytime you can spend point in replenishment, get replenishment. Replenishment is extremely useful. If you're a faction that has easy access to replenishment, you're a strong faction. High Elves have it. Warriors of Chaos have it. Greenskins don't necessarily have it, but it's not really too hard for them to get the tier 3 settlement to unlock them. And they want trolls anyway. The River Troll Hags do have a magic tree, but it's not really worth it. Like, it's much better to use them as a melee tank in a fight, though they don't necessarily have the skills. But Hard Mass into Wild Eyed, like with points spent in replenishing whenever you can, Expeditious Endeavor for extra movement. Leadership on Heroes and Lords is not really that important most of the time. Because if they're routing, then your army is routing first, and that leaves them on their own. That creates a lot of problems. Then into Tenacity. They only have a hard-to-hit ability much later on, though it is useful into Deadly Onslaught. Buff their melee attack. Always get Dodgy Geezer for all your heroes and your lords whenever possible, because it will significantly reduce the damage that they're taking from ranged. Bad. River Troll Hags are pretty good. And then finally, Goblin Big Bosses. Now, Goblin Big Bosses are kind of the most useless of all of them, though they do provide a pretty decent campaign benefit in giving you post-battle loot benefits. Though I wouldn't stress out over getting a lot of these guys. I don't really think it's worth it. Like, hero capacity-wise, I would much rather improve Shaman capacity, Giant River Troll Hag capacity, than bother with these guys. Though it is tied to the control building, but you need to get it to a higher tier, and you can only do it in a major settlement. So you may find yourself limited with Goblin Big Bosses in the campaign. They're pretty decent melee, though not as good as the Black Orc Big Bosses. But they're pretty decent melee with Bloody Blade. Always spend the point in Scavenge when you can. Bloody Blade into Elusive for a lot of melee defense. 1 point in Gutter Fighter. Don't buff the weapon strength. It's much better to buff the melee attack. Chance to hit, basically. Slippery. A lot of melee defense. The Nasty Skulker. 10% weapon strength. Yeah, it's better than going... it's better than 1 point in Precise. You need to spend 2 points in Precise to make it slightly better, and free to make it a lot twice as good. But it's just better to go in Survivalist, Counter Striker, and finally get They Need Stabbing to affect an enemy, because this ability will make enemy lords and heroes far more vulnerable. But but they're not really heroes that are worth investing a lot, unless you're facing some very powerful lords and heroes in a campaign like Archeon and Kolic. But even then, there's a limited usefulness to them. Like, I think the Black Orc Big Boss is generally better in combat ability, because he's got a lot more durability than the Goblin Big Bosses. The Giant River Troll Hag for replenishment, and the Shamans, of course, for magical ability. Now, with all that said, let's talk about the economy that the Greenskins have. The Greenskins cannot trade, which actually limits their diplomatic options by quite a significant amount, because without being able to trade, factions will not engage with you as much diplomatically. Certainly not in this case, where I've screwed over my reputation on a global level. By the way, that's beyond the point. However, even though Greenskins can trade, they can earn a lot of money. At the beginning of this video, I showed you how much money you can get from post-battle. That's an open field battle. Those will generally generate less than sacking a settlement. So, for instance, here I sacked the Challenge Stone. I got over 30,000 or more gold from that. if I were to take this army and sack it, it says only it says only 900, but in reality it would be quite a bit more than that. Although maybe not, since it's only a tier 1 settlement for whatever reason. I might be better served sacking the Valerie and then Fortress of Eyes to gain a significant amount of money. Regardless, though, regardless of all of that, Greenskins rely on post-battle loot, sacking settlements. In terms of the money they do generate from their own settlements, it is actually quite substantial. Because they do have the pile of shiny stuff at tier 1, it's only 250, but it's very cheap to get. It's extremely cheap to get, and it's very cheap to upgrade to 500. To 500 by default, and that can be buffed even further. And that's basically the only economic building that they do have, though of course they do have things like gold mines available to them, gems, all that kind of good stuff. Available to them, Black Orb Forges for some benefits. Though many resources just give them upkeep benefits to all armies, or economy benefits across the board, since they are not using those resources. Like for instance, the Black Orb Forge gives me an upkeep benefit and a recruit rank benefit. Like outside of gold and maybe gems, I think it is. You're not really going to see a lot of usage. It says there's salt, but there's no salt building. All right, fair enough. Greenskins do have great growth, as I've covered. They do generate a good amount of money. Like my initial province here, even though I'm not trading or anything like that, is generating almost 3,000 gold. But there's more. Beyond the shiny stuff, you also get the raiding stashes. Now this is a tier 3 building, but each of these and its stacks gives you 2% 3% income from post-battle loot, 2% from raiding, 2% from income. Get a lot of these and you'll reach ridiculous level of income from post-battle loot. Now get 50 and watch your income from sacking and looting settlements go up to a ridiculous level, and that's on top of the benefits lords can get through all the banners that they carry and their heroes can carry. So each lord and each hero can have these ancillaries, these followers, right? The ones you're looking for from an economic perspective are the pit bosses are good because post-battle casualties do impact how much you're going to earn, or at least do impact the post-battle options. But the one you want is Snotling Scavengers. You'll get a lot of these, very a biblical amount of these. Then Swindler, 7% post battle loot, and I believe that would be it. Those are the two main ones. Though you can also get Bully, so you can get from followers 16%, and that's just on the Lord. Here's the thing. Heroes can also carry these, right? So I've got Bully, Snarling Scavengers, Swindler on here. So, and I've got 5 in total for heroes and Lord. That's how you generate money as the Greenskins. That's how you generate a biblical amount of money. In point of fact, when it comes to how much money I have, I'll just give you guys an idea of the sheer ridiculousness of it. Right? How much money do you think one can have? Well, if I construct literally everything that I can on the campaign map, I will not have any. I'm still at 20k and I have nothing else to construct. Literally everything that I could construct in every settlement has been constructed or is in the process of being constructed. Well, minus that. Anyway. So, maybe a couple of them, but by and large, and this is a relatively decent empire. Quite a lot of factions can struggle with having the money to upgrade their structures, or you need to be strategic when you upgrade the structures. As the Greenskins, you just don't give a damn. because you're generating so much money through sacking settlements, through post-battle loot, that you will not care about money deficiency. The only monetary concerns you have if you're playing the greenskins is this: how many armies can I maintain without going completely bankrupt in a single turn? A single turn. Like if you can maintain your economy for one turn and fight a battle that the next turn, that is enough. It doesn't matter what enemy it is, unless it's a heavily damaged settlement that won't give you a lot of money. You can be running under red 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. It doesn't matter, and you'll still not go bankrupt as long as you can fight a battle against any decently sized settlement. And you actually scale up in this, because the higher the level of settlements, the more money you're gonna get from sacking them. So greenskins are absolutely ridiculous. They're absolutely ridiculous to a completely crazy level in terms of the money that they can earn. The only other factions that come close to their post-battle options are Warriors of Chaos and Vampire Coast. Yeah, Vampire Coast generates a lot of money post-battle. When I first saw it in my Noctilus campaign, I was like, what in the world's going on? But Vampire Coast obviously has its own issues overall as a faction, in terms of their army, in terms of their campaign. Greenskins don't have. They have only positives. Like, yeah, Lords being a bit weak, all that, doesn't really matter. You have an incredibly powerful economy based on smashing stuff. Feels very appropriate. Now let's talk about research, and it's really with research that greenskins can get a lot in their campaign. A lot of the research that they have is useful, but what should you get? What should you prioritize? Well, here's my perspective on that. Obviously, you're going to get a WAD. That's the first thing you're going to get. You need to get it. And then after that, I would strongly recommend people go for Go Fasta for that 10% campaign movement range. And yes, this does stack with Grimgore's campaign movement range. And then you may want to get Sharper Stabbers to get scrap upgrades for your units and the melee attack for goblins and night goblin units. The weapon strength for pub wagons doesn't really matter. You can also benefit from post-battle loot, not necessarily as the early priority, I would argue. You're going to get mushrooms and all that, because if you want to get beyond counting and the entire skill tree here, and it's worth getting this skill tree, because you get a lot of reputation. Like, if you can unlock sharing is caring, that would be great. But greenskins have great research choices for the most part, and it's relatively fast. You can genuinely, like, consider this. It's turn 50 in this campaign, and I've gotten most of everything that's here. The only ones I haven't gotten just require scrap, and each of them takes one turn. Give me 50 free turns and to unlock everything, and I will be able to do just that. But once you get Go Faster and Sharper Stabbers, I would go for Gobby Gobbos. Not for the upkeep benefit. As I said, money is not really a major issue. I mean, it can be nice to have an upkeep benefit, but I feel like my issue with Skarsnik isn't that the upkeep benefit isn't great. It's just that he's got nothing else going for him beyond that. But anyway, Gobby Gobbos gives you 5% upkeep, melee attack, 10% missile strength, and you can then get Use Them right after, which gives you recruit rank for goblins, armor for goblins. That armor for goblins is great, 7 armor for goblins, and 5% missile strength. Together, these give you 15% range missile strength for goblins and night goblin missile units. And night goblin archers are the best archers that you have available in your faction. Well, I guess savage orc archers are pretty good as well. But generally, night goblin archers are better. And then Abuse Them, melee attack. Though I find that I don't necessarily need this too much. But yeah, Gobby Gobbos and Use Them, maybe Abuse Them as well. Just like get these 2 skills at the top, then get these free in the middle, and then go Gobbo Crackdown. Gobbo Crackdown is pretty good. You can get Pulling Teeth for 5% income, though that really won't matter too much. But Egamon, which gives you casualty replenishment 10% for goblin units, that's pretty good. And then get On Second Thoughts. because this gives you Vanguard deployment for all goblins and ammunition for Doom Divers. And like basically these two first off, these two after that, maybe all these three, right? So 5 skills. Then into Gobbo Crackdown, Egamon, and then on second thought. And after that, you've got choices. Like, you can go bigger for just a 10 growth dope. You won't need it. There's a lot of growth greenskins have. You really, really don't need this. But you want to get it for heavy metal to get the scrap upgrades for Orc Boys, right? And you will probably want to get that. For heavy clubs, not really worth it. Big on bullies, like, eventually you're just getting to a point where you're getting stuff just to unlock more stuff. You do have 2 special lords. One of them is not really that great. Like Spider Claw, just like, oh, buffing spider units. Spider units don't really matter for the greenskins, as I feel like it. Oglok is a different discussion because he does buff orc infantry units as well. I mean, his special thing is to buff your orc boar riders and orc boar biguns, or rather give orc boar units a significant charge bonus, but really you get an armor benefit for orc infantry units, melee attack for orc infantry units. Like, he's actually a really good orc lord if you can get him, though I wouldn't prioritize him over everything else. Beyond counting can be great, and then yeah, the middle skill tree. Though there are some things down here that can be great, like Beta and Beta. Like, decide what you want to prioritize. Do you want the upkeep benefit, or do you want more Lord Recruit rank from the very start? You can also get the Troll scrap upgrades. Though Trolls will be pretty good even without that scrap upgrade. But really, by turn 100, you can reasonably unlock everything, or 120 or something like that. Depends on who you're playing. Like, I'm playing Azag. By turn 100 or so, I should be able to unlock everything, or mostly everything, in that particular skill tree. But yeah, focus on the goblins early on. Just get the goblin skills, buff them up for the stratosphere through those skills, and then lord skills, army skills, and they will do a lot. Get the scrap upgrades for goblins, because they are quite useful and they're quite good. Finally, let's talk about the army composition. One should understand the greenskins don't have the best armies when it comes to auto-resolve situation. But that's because I think Creative Assembly did deliberately nerf the greenskin auto-resolve chances to account for the WoW army. Because when you declare a WoW, when you fill up the meter at the top and you declare a WoW, each army will basically double in size. So this army over here had 20 units. When I declared the WoW, it got 20 more units. Now, the 20 units you get in the WoW army are not going to be so great, but they can be, especially these goblins and orc boys, they can be great for soaking up some of the damage that your proper units can get. Like, send these guys in an artillery line or a range line to soak up some damage, or put the trolls in between these goblins and protect them even further, and see the trolls do damage, just as an example. Now, army composition wise, what should you go for? Well, early on, with any tier 1 settlement, you can recruit goblin archers. With the tier 2 barracks, you can recruit nasty skulkers. And with a tier 3 siege workshop, basically, let me see if I have one. No, don't have that. I do have one somewhere, but regardless, with the tier 3 workshop, with the Goblin Tinkerer's Bench, you can recruit Goblin Rock Lobbers. And that's basically your early game army. Minus the Rock Lobbers, those can be a bit hard to come by. You can use Trolls instead. Like, having some kind of unit to break down gates and have Siege Attacker can be useful. You want the Siege Attacker to be able to just attack a walled settlement instantly, so Rock Lobbers, Trolls can do the job. But your mainstay army, and one of your best early game armies, is exactly this that Skarsnik has. Not necessarily led by Skarsnik, but still pretty strong. Nasty Skulkers, Goblin Archers, and Goblin Rock Lobbers. And the Rock Lobbers are optional, and you may not be able to get them. But Goblin Archers and Nasty Skulkers. But why? Why is this? Well, research-wise, having gone through all that, one of the things you notice is there's a lot of benefits to goblins. Then there's lord benefits to goblins. And then there's scrap as well that you'll get very easy access to through research. And you get a lot of benefits. Goblins are not great units by default necessarily, but they do gain a lot of power through that research. You also get the Gobbo skill through any lord, giving them a great deal of combat ability. So goblins are, one, very cheap, and two, very powerful, with all the easy to get upgrades, all the easy skills that you can get. And let's talk about Goblin Archers. So a combination of Nasty Skulkers, which are a tier 2 unit, and Goblin Archers, which are a tier 1 unit, that you can recruit in any settlement, works very well. If you don't have access to Nasty Skulkers, you can just make an entire army of Goblin Archers. They'll do a really good job. They're only slightly worse than Kossars, actually. Leadership, they do get effective far more than Kislev Kossars, though keep in mind, they're only slightly weaker than Kossars by default, but you get a lot of upgrades that make them substantially better than Kossars in a lot of ways, until Kislev gets its late game units. They're about on the same level as human archers, but human archers don't have the many significant upgrades the greenskins get access to. So Goblin Archers, pretty decent units, though they're weak against armor, but there is a way to deal with that with the heavy ammo, giving them some armor piercing. Like here, they have 5 armor piercing with the scrap. You will need scrap for that. Or you can, though armor piercing is more important later on, not early on, or you can get 45% ammo for them. But then there's the Nasty Skulkers. And the Nasty Skulkers are absolutely insane. They have pretty good leadership. For goblins anyway. With some upgrades, they get a decent level of armor. If led by a goblin great shaman, they get that aforementioned armor benefit, so they're even more durable in combat. But even without that, even without scrap upgrades, these guys are absolutely insane. But why is that? Well, most of their damage is armor piercing. So they get 18 armor piercing damage. So the Dwarven, heavily armored units, Warriors Chaos, Empire, they'll get torn to shreds by these guys. What do you do against them? Melee units will flat out lose against them. Even much higher tier melee units will lose against upgraded Nasty Skulkers with research and lord skills and all that, and scrap upgrades. So what do you do against them? Cavalry? Yeah, they have a counter to that, actually. They have a heavy counter to cavalry in that they get smoke bombs. So cavalry needs a charge to do a lot of damage. With their cycle charging, well, they can just pop smoke bombs before the cavalry cycle charges, and the AI is not too great at using cavalry anyway. So these guys can nullify, like, so let's say you get charged by Bretonnia. Let's say you're playing Grom, you get charged by Bretonnia. You just pop these smoke bombs. Cavalry gets stuck in melee. They don't do any real damage on the charge. They get stuck in melee. They get torn to shreds. Ranged units, they're invisible by default. And by the time ranged units detect them, it will be too late. Same with artillery. And in sieges, these guys may not be the best frontal assault units, true, but you can just, like, if I were to take an army to besiege a settlement with Skarsnik's army here, I would just put all the Goblin Archers on one side with the Rock Lobbers to take down the walls and towers, and then I'd send all the Nasty Skulkers atop the wall on another side. They won't detect them, they won't counter them until it's too late. And by the time the front line is engaged, and by the time, like, you know, Skarsnik goes through the gates, like, these guys will come behind the enemy army and tear it to shreds inside their own walls, or capture the victory points. An upgrade to this army. So this is like your early game army right here, minus the rock labas. And it's also a really good crap stack. Like, it's a relatively cheap army, all things considered. A more expensive version of this is one with heroes, so shamans, black orcs, giant river troll hags. The heroes are great distraction, allowing your stealth units to go in there. The heroes can also be great distraction, so that your night goblin archers can do a lot of damage. Like, if you're going to use a lot of range, it's great to have some single entities like back or big bosses, or even goblin big bosses to soak a lot of damage, not a lot of infantry. And then trolls, stone trolls, but even regular trolls will do the job. They can be great to hold the front line. Stone trolls are the best, though they do take a bit more time to recruit, but they've got terror, they've got fear, not terror, they've got fear, they've got siege attacker, they've got regeneration, and they've got a good amount of armor and survivability. That's the benefit of the stone trolls. And yeah, you keep the same benefit of nasty skulkers. So you might want to get some artillery, but you might lose some skulkers. I don't necessarily see the point of an artillery when you've got stone trolls. And yeah, night goblins are night goblin archers are expendable. You can upgrade these even further, or upgrade them, replace them. Though there is a mod, the Warband upgrade mod, you can upgrade these from Night Goblin Archers to Night Goblin Archer Fanatics with the Warband upgrade mod. The Greenskins don't need any mods to be really good. The mods are just for quality of life changes. There's a recommended list in the description. But this is like a mid-game army, like a tier 3 army, if I'm not mistaken. Like all the units here can be recruited at tier 3. It's a bit expensive, and you may not want to get all of this. Because you might want to have a lot more of these armies running around. Like run 2 stacks of these side by side, they'll do an incredible job. One of the things to understand is Dot Resolve really likes it when you bring a lot of units to the field. Hell, even in regular battles, just sheer outnumber an enemy, it generally matters more than having more powerful units, unless they're far more powerful. Though a couple of trolls can always help out, because they can do a lot of damage in a fight. The nasty skulkers are pretty scary to have in a fight. Orc armies, I wouldn't use orc armies too much unless it's for a specific legendary lord. But even then, I'd bring a lot of other stuff as well. Like for instance, Azag, he gets melee defense for orc and big guns, speed, all that kind of good stuff. He does get an archer benefit, but it's not really worth it, as I feel, compared to Night Goblin archers. But you can get some big guns in his army, though also with trolls. Monstrous units, Arachnaroks and all that, they're just not really cost effective. They're good, but just not cost effective, and it's not really worth it to bring a lot of them in a fight. You know, some regiments are renowned, some Y units. You can get some Y units, some Arachnaroks, live Arachnaroks, all that kind of stuff. Wyverns, that might be worth it. I would not bother with giants, though. Never bother with giants. Tier 3 is all you need for trolls and troll hags. You don't need tier 4 for the sake of giants, for the sake of it. And then a very high-end army, if I move over here to Grimgor, where I started this video, this is a very high-end army. Black Orcs are incredibly durable in a fight. Stone Trolls, pretty good. Heroes, of course. The Crimson Killers, incredibly good. And then Doomdiver catapults for the artillery power. This is a high-end army. It's really expensive. 6,000 cost. It is worth quite a bit. But it will absolutely be worth using on the battlefield if you want to spend a lot of money. In this case, in this campaign, I've got 12 armies running around the campaign map. 2 I just recently recruited before I had 10, so I got 2 recent stacks here. I've got plenty of money to spare even if I'm on deficit. Like, you shouldn't be concerned when you're running a deficit as Greenskins, because you can make a lot of money back. Like a 2,000 deficit, that's like, I just need to fight a single battle and I'll be set for 5 turns. A 10,000 deficit, that's, you know, just fight a battle, 2 battles, 3 battles. I just get a lot of armies as the Greenskins. Maybe a couple of very powerful armies to deal with the endgame crises. Like, these 2 are pretty good and powerful in-game armies, though maybe this army would need some extra units. I'm also recruiting another full stack of trolls and goblins over here. Night Goblin Fanatics over here to add more combat potential. Should you bother at all with boar boys or cavalry? I wouldn't necessarily say so, honestly. Like, trolls are pretty fast in their own way. Like, yeah, orcs, the one disadvantage orcs have in terms of battle is that they're pretty slow. Like, the one big advantage with goblins is that they're generally really fast as units. So I would usually not bother with any cavalry unit if you're playing this greenskins. What about rogue idols? Could be good having one of them. It could be good having one or two of them, sure. And the regiments of renown, of course, they're always good to have. But I wouldn't. But getting the buildings can be a fairly expensive endeavor. See, the thing about greenskin buildings is this: at a lower tier, like if we look at the buildings themselves, at the lower tier, they're not so expensive. But at a higher tier, things do start getting a bit out of hand. So at tier 5 in particular, like at tier 4, it's still reasonable. And generally much cheaper than what a lot of other races have. But like at tier 5, just spending 7,000 for this, just really for the recruitment of to be able to recruit a rogue idol, yeah, that's a bit ridiculous. Not necessarily worth it, even when you're swimming in cash, really. The greenskins structures, like up until tier 3, like, or rather up until tier 4, they're incredibly cheap. After that, they do start getting very, very expensive. But granted, even with the greenskins, with their amazing growth, you won't just be rolling around in a lot of tier 4 and tier 5 settlements. Anyway, that's all there is to say. Costine here, signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and I'll see you boys next time.